Hello, shall we start? Are we all good? Any food coma? A little bit. Have you got your popcorns? Okay, hi everyone. Good afternoon. All right, my name is Joanne. Okay, I'm the moderator for this session here. So before we begin, are we all in the right session on STEM? Yes, correct? All right. Okay, a very warm welcome to parents. Maybe parents would be parents who have been parents for many decades. I think mine just one. All right. Okay. Right. Before we proceed, let me just share a little bit about this session. Okay, let's get cozy, all right? Okay, don't panic. I'm panicking. All right. Okay. So this session is about supporting our children in STEM learning. All right. So what's the thinking behind it? How should we approach? What kind of questions or activities to do? All right. And we have with us 3 distinguished speakers. All right. I shall get them to do a short introduction about themselves. Maybe something fun about yourself, the kind of work you do. All right. But let me just introduce them first. First, we have our first speaker, Dr. Tan Kok Siang. He's the Senior Educational Consultant with SGReflect. All right, then we have Mr. Jeffrey Na. He's with the Future Ready Academy. At first I thought, okay, let's not forget that, but he has it on the shirt. So that's why when I introduced him, I was like looking at his shirt again. All right, and we have Miss Nancy Soon. She's with Stemie Advantages. All right, maybe we should get Dr. Tan to give a short intro first. All right.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Kok Siang. I'm actually a school teacher by training, taught in school for 12 years. But before that, I was working in the industry as a process chemist. Then after teaching in school for 12 years, I was in NIE for almost 22 years as a science teacher educator. So I just retired 2 years ago. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Jeffrey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeffrey Na. I see a familiar face in the audience. There is Chung. When I talk about entrepreneurship later, I mean, he's a model entrepreneur Singapore. He's the founder of 99.co, and his wife, Roshni, I saw earlier, is the founder of the Asian Parent. So they are true blue entrepreneurs, and I think Singapore need more of them. So what am I? I'm a banker turned entrepreneur, investor. I've spent about 43 years of my career outside Singapore, 25 of my 43 working experience outside Singapore. So I've lived many countries. I've seen a lot of things happening. I've seen a lot of changes, and I think so as there is. And I think the fabric of education needs to change from memorizing and grades to doing. And doing with STEM. Why STEM? Because STEM helps you build a new world and a better society. So I'll share more later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. Miss Nancy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy Soon, founder of Stemie Advantages. I've been, just like Jeffrey, from corporate world, software engineer turned educator, and I've been in the education field for the last 25 years. In terms of a fun thing I like to do is I like to take apart things and figure out how things work. And I think this is one thing that has led me down into this path of invention education for children, because I think curiosity and knowing how things work is going to be where they will be our future makers, doers, shakers.
Right, thank you, Miss Nancy. I was that child before as well. I took apart a radio. Last time we still have radio. And I couldn't put it back, so I just pretend that it's still intact. Until one day, my parents decided to use it and they realized. And of course, those days, you have the cane. So I'm not innovative or creative anymore. All right. Okay. So let's before we start, maybe just a reminder: each speaker has about 15 minutes to share, and after the three of them have shared, we will have our Q&A. So if you have any questions or topics you would like to find out more, keep it to the last bit. All right. So, Mr. Jeffrey, sorry, Dr. Tan, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. My topic is on STEM learning, and there are only two parts that I want to share. So the first part is I'm going to explain what STEM is and why STEM is important. Although I know some of you are already working in the STEM industry and know what STEM really is, but I'm coming from a point as an educator. And the second part, I'm going to introduce two learning and thinking approaches, which you may use with your children at home or maybe for educators in your classroom to help them prepare for STEM learning experiences when they go to school and maybe further on when they go to work. All right. Now, I want to start off, because I'm a teacher, so I always wanted to start off with an activity. But this is not a workshop, so I'm going to show you a video of an activity that I showed. And then this video is very short, but it has been shown to different audiences in many, many countries also. So this is the first time I'm showing to, not parents, the parents I've shown before, but the first time I'm showing to a public audience. So I want you to watch this video. I have actually, oops, sorry. What is happening to, I can't go back, right? Oh, sorry. Okay, now I got it. Okay, just watch. Okay, I have a cup with a small hole punched at the bottom. And I'm going to pour 200 cm cube of water into the cup. And your task is to take the time for the water to drain from the cup. So, of course, you will have to start from the first drop, and then when it reaches towards the end, the last drop, you'll stop. Okay? So, of course, you don't have to do it. It's not a workshop, but take a look at it. Okay, so the last drop has done, and if a timing, you probably would have stopped the timing, and you might have actually, you probably would have take the time. And I ask you, what is the rate of water flow? Now, it seems a very easy, simple task. So what is the water rate flow like? Okay. Well, of course, you don't have the data, but most people will say, oh, it's very simple. It's 200 cm cube divided by the time taken. But if you look carefully, actually, I can't manipulate it with this clicker, but you will see that actually towards the end, I can't, you watch one more time, there's some residue. So if you are observant enough, you will have seen that residue, and you would have straight away tell me, yeah, it's actually volume of water that is drained out divided by the time. But I can't get you the answer because there's something missing there. Okay, it may seem like a very simple activity, but think about it. Would you want your child who is going to go to school and then go to work to be able to just say, oh, it's volume over time? Or, yes, it's volume over time, but I can't answer the question because I observed that there is some residual there. All right? So there are two steps. But even if the child can say, yes, there's some residual water there, the next step is, how do you resolve the issue? How do you get the rate accurately? All right? And even if the child says, oh yeah, I have a method to get the accurate rate, that's good, but it's not enough. It's still not enough. You probably want your child to say, oh, I got one method, but I can also think of several other valid methods. So the first two, in fact, the first three is about science. And especially the third and the fourth scenario where the child can say, I can find the answer, I can solve the problem, but I can use different ways of solving the problem, that actually is STEM. Okay, so I'm going to go into three very commonly mentioned terms and phrases in STEM. STEM education, and STEM learning. Now, what is STEM? Okay, in most dictionaries, STEM is just defined as abbreviation for 4 subjects: science, technology, engineering, and math. Maybe they are including the 5th subject, arts A, and then you might get STEAM. Okay, I think my panel member, Mr. Now, will talk more about that later. But STEM is not just about abbreviation. It is actually any area, gadget, systems, or processes that involve the integration of information, skills, and knowledge. Now, I want to emphasize this word integration because it is what the teaching and the thinking and learning approaches is focused on. Because learning and thinking is a habit, right? And if we start our children young, form the habits of learning and thinking that can support STEM learning, I think when they go into schools where the new syllabus is actually just rolled out, they will be able to fit into the new way of learning science. And when they go to work, I think they will be more than ready to take on a STEM career. The second term is STEM education. STEM education refers to any organization or programs where they prepare young children in schools, say enrichment program on STEM areas, or they may have industrial training for workers, adult workers, on some STEM related. So this is more or less a training program or education program. And some of this may end up with some certification or qualification. And the third phrase, STEM learning. Now, to me, this is the most important because STEM learning is actually fundamental across all ages. But precisely for preschools or even primary schools or secondary schools, STEM learning is very, very important. How we train our students to think and learn will decide for themselves whether they will be ready for the jobs that are coming to them when they graduate. Okay? So STEM learning is solving problems, learning, and pushing innovation forward. Now, why STEM is so important? I think if you remember in 2015, PM Lee, he acknowledged that science and technology was fundamental and very, very played a very huge role in our first 50 years of nationhood building. But for the next 50 years, this same subject, science and technology, now known as STEM, is going to play an even bigger role because of the complexity and also the advancement, the rate at which advancement is going on in our society. STEM is going to play a big role in our life. So STEM is here to stay, and we are going to learn about STEM features and skills, which are mostly involving hands-on learning, okay, in authentic real-world contexts. Okay, so this is something that I think all of us will encounter when we work, or if you're younger in schools or in the universities, you'll find that a lot of our projects are no longer just textbook-based. We have to do a lot of authentic learning. And we can expect our businesses, our policymakers, our educators to talk and use STEM to sell their products, to explain their policies. So it's going to be very important. So I'm going into the question of why we need to have STEM learning for our young children. I mean, when I was asked to give this talk, I was thinking to myself, preschool. I mean, STEM is for preschool. How much of the young children are going to learn about STEM? But then I think it's very important to know. Teachers and parents, I think in your interaction with young children, you will agree with me that children are curious, innately curious, okay? And they learn by experience. They like that. And they always have ways of doing new things. And along the way, they make mistakes. But then they may, through the mistakes, eventually achieve something on their own or discover a new learning, and they get excited about it, okay? And they work in teams, they work in groups, they play in groups, they interact with their parents and teachers, the adults, and they form positive relationships. These are very generic, right, learning experiences of a child. Then the question is, how do we use these common children learning experiences and try to bring them into the learning habits that will help them develop some capacity, right, to learn science differently when they go to schools. It's never too early to teach your children how to think and learn, right, effectively and in a way that is actually relevant to the times. So to do that, I looked through the STEM literature, and here's a list of STEM learning features and skills And the very first and most important skills is observation skills. Ask any scientists, engineers, artists, technologists, any job they do, any problem they solve, the first skill is observation. If you're not observant, there's no way you can go anywhere. So we can bang on our children's curiosity, work on them, and try to encourage them to be more observant. And there are ways to do that, okay? Then, experiential learning. Well, this real-world context is all about experiential learning. Trying out new things. You can turn it into teachable moments to help them understand what is perseverance and what is resilience. Then we can also look at their mistakes. I always say there's no such thing as mistakes if the student or the learner did not do it intentionally. If it's a so-called mistakes, it's more of a missteps. A mistake is more like they intentionally make a mistake to hurt someone or to destroy something. So it's more of a misstep. So we can turn it to kind of teachable moments. So mistakes can turn into ideation, which is an important stage in design thinking and also in maker space. And of course, when they achieve something, the joy of learning, the pride of achievement, you can actually turn it into a lesson to tell them about respecting other people's achievement, enjoying other people's achievement, and before you know it, they will be reading about property rights, intellectual property rights. Okay, and of course, in their social interaction, group management. So all these skills I've stated are actually all cited in the latest skills future report and the McKinsey report on the future of work. So what is important now is how do we bring learning and thinking approaches to our daily life interaction with our children and for educators to our students in classroom. So I'm going to show you two very broad learning approach and thinking approach, right? Learning approach, divergent learning and convergent thinking. Okay, I grabbed this from the science syllabus. You can actually Google primary science 2023 syllabus and you will get this copy from the MOE website or lower secondary science. This is the new framework. Previous to this, the framework only has inquiry as the core pedagogy. But with this new framework, they have added two more ins: inquiry, innovation, and inspiration. It was rolled out in 2021, and in 2024, I believe, next year, all primary 3 onwards to and all the secondary schools, their science will be guided by this new framework, which is, although not a STEM curriculum, our curriculum is not a STEM curriculum, but it's a STEM learning-friendly curriculum. What does it mean? It means that when your children who are very young now, in a couple of years, they'll be in primary school, they will be learning science, probably with this framework and more things maybe, I'm not sure. But they will definitely be having to learn science through not just inquiry, but through innovation and through inspiration. So what is divergent? Divergent is being able to broaden the children's capacity to collect information, to explore possibilities, suggest alternatives. And then with the range of choices, narrow down to something that is useful to them, that is relevant, and then decide what to do with it, and to solve problems and maybe to create their own artifacts. So the future of work expectations for STEM professionals, and coming from an industrial background myself, right 30 years ago, it was already expected of us to be observant, and we have to be resourceful to be able to get information like real time and on our own, and use this information to make connections. What do you mean by make connections? Make connections means be able to identify trends, okay, spot patterns, establish relationship. And these are important because, like I said just now, the integration part in STEM, they will be able to do that, right, effectively. So in conclusion, I would really like to spend more time talking about the specific examples, maybe in the classroom mostly, because my children are all very big already. But maybe at the Q&A, you can suggest some methods in which we can make our children more observant, okay, more able to generate possibilities and alternatives, because this will make them divergent learners. And then use this to zero down on what they actually need to use effectively. In fact, this is very important, right? Convergent thinking is referring to critical thinking and appraisal thinking. In this time, we have a lot of false news, fake news, and a lot of information coming in. Children must be critical enough to see what is right, what is wrong, and what is useful. So with that, I end my presentation, and I would like to thank all of you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Tan. All right, I am also an educator myself, and being a teacher, we tend to download information on our children. So I do that with my child as well. So one fine day, I realized that I should actually step back and let her tell me. So we were at the bus stop and she was like, "Mommy, what's that man doing over there?" So instead of just telling my child what he's doing, I asked my child back, "What do you think he's doing?" And she waited and she couldn't tell me. So I prompted. And with that prompt, it leads to many possibilities. All right. So the prompt will be, maybe just look at the body language of that man. Is he doing something? Things like this. So that helps the child to be more observant. And that's one thing I did with my child. All right. Okay. So over to you, Mr. Jeffrey.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Dr. Tan, if it's okay, I prefer to stand up. I'm not used to standing down and talking. Today, I'm going to share with you why your children need to STEAM into the future. Because the future is today. You will see that the world is going to be completely different than what you can ever imagine. So, ladies and gentlemen, just a quick introduction. I see a fellow entrepreneur, two fellow entrepreneurs who are husband and wives here, Darius Chong and Roshni as well. So increasingly, the non-entrepreneurs also will need to be entrepreneurial in the coming days because the world is changing very rapidly. The volatility, the uncertainty, the complex and more ambiguous world calls for more entrepreneurial traits. And I like what Joanne mentioned earlier. Stop the teaching, let them do the learning. You are just the facilitator. So as an entrepreneur, I'm a 42 years experience, 25 years I've lived outside Singapore. And I've done a lot of things from banking to entrepreneurship to now I'm investing in early stage techno startups. And that's why I actually started a Future Ready Academy because I feel the STEM learning and the digital learning and the entrepreneurial and 21st century learning is critical for the next generation if Singapore is going to have Singapore 100. You can see here this handsome gentleman. I think you recognize this handsome gentleman, Mr. Chan. He says exactly, the student must develop curiosity and a meritocracy for skills. What does that mean? It means your certificates are not going to get you jobs anymore. It's what you can do, it's what you can contribute to the company. I mean, if you think logically, why would a company value your certificate, whether it's master's or PhD, relative to what you are able to contribute to the company? And that means your skill. Now I share with you a little video. You'll see, this is not science fiction. This is today. This is a warehouse in Shanghai. You don't see any humans. This is a mine in South Australia. And here you see the farms across the United States prairies in United States and Canada. And here you see a dairy farm. You see a lot of cows, you see a lot of grass. Did you see ever a single human? Can you imagine you can have a 3D printed house in 24 hours? And soon you will see what a 24-hour 3D printed house looks like in Sweden. 24 hours, all it takes. But not only a small house, a skyscraper built with very little human inside. driverless trucks carrying goods across the United States. And Amazon check in, check out without a single human in sight. And when you order your products e-commerce, Amazon is ready with drones to deliver to your doorstep. In some cases, at your balconies of your high-rise condo. And here in McDonald's, they are flipping burgers with no humans. The robo-surgery is able to do a more accurate surgery, more precise than any human orthopedic surgeon can do. And today, as everybody knows, ChatGPT can be a better journalist than most human journalists. And AlphaGo has beat the best human mind on Go. In the old days, when the streets of New York were filled with horses, they say cars are new luxury. And that was when things were moving very slowly. Ladies and gentlemen, things are not moving slowly anymore. The movement, the change will be exponential. The world today is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. For those reasons that you can see up there, everybody knows about the trade war. I mean, we don't need to talk about it. The trade war is also a technological war for supremacy, with AI being able to do what it does. And as you can see, we had very hot days, and suddenly we had this downpour, and you can have floods. Even in Singapore, which is usually non-volatile, right? Last time, if somebody tell you you can have flood in Orchard Road, you might be laughing your head off. But I bet you today you will not be laughing anymore, because it has happened. And it can happen again. So geopolitical uncertainties, all these volatile world, what will be the future of work like? The future of work is about who does the work, how the work is done, when and where the work is done. Now, it's not about human or robots. It's about man and machine coexisting together. How can man and machine coexist together and produce more productive work? If you are a man doing the same job without any machine versus somebody who has all the machines, who do you think is going to get the job done faster, cheaper, better? I'll leave you to think. So what does that mean? In the old days, machines replace, let me just find the, okay, the laser is not working. In the old days, machine replaces physical and manual labor. It replaces basic cognitive, like data processing and basic literacy and reading. But in the days of tomorrow, the machines are able to do higher cognitive ability with machine learning. You can just ask Mr. Darius Chong there later, if you have a chance, how his technology will help you find your best home at the best price, right, Darius? And of course, we need the people with the leadership and entrepreneurship capabilities. Right? Why leadership and entrepreneurship? Because the situation is fast changing. You need to be fast adapting. If you're not fast adapting, then you will be dead. Again, I think Darius can tell you a lot about near-death situations, as much as I can. McKinsey Global says the advanced IT skills and programming and basic digital skills are a minimum given. So what the workforce skills will have to change is you need to retrain, redeploy, hire, and there will be more gig workers on contract. Forget about full-time work. The United States today is already 40% gig workers. Singapore is only less than 5%. It will move towards that, I guarantee you. But it's not all bad. Being gig worker means it gives you the freedom and ability to choose to do different things in your lifetime. You do not need to be stuck in one silo. But it means you have to learn to skill and reskill constantly. So if you love to learn and learn again, whatever your age, I'll tell you, I'm learning every day. I'm learning every day. Even as I speak to you, I'm learning from you on your reaction. I'm looking at the little girl. I'm learning from the little girl how she navigates the stairs into where she finds her mommy or daddy. The schools of the future. The World Economic Forum, which is the worldwide think tank, says that the education of the future and the schools of the future do not exist today. They need to incorporate emerging skills in childhood education. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is digital and STEM skills. And the ability to work with all kinds of people in every culture, in every corner of the world. To be able to adapt to people who speak different languages, different habits. To be able to incentivize the children to want to learn how to learn. What is there a better way to encourage the children to learn than learning through play? How do you make them play? If you ask a kid, do you want to play? The answer is obvious. If you ask them, do you want to learn? The answer is also obvious. So ladies and gentlemen, if you can find a way to make them play. This is the Education 4.0 framework of the World Economic Forum. It says the content that you must have is you must be able to train your kids to know what is global citizenship skills. In other words, you must be able, with the social media presence, you need to be able to train them on what's ethical, what's not, what's right and what's not so right. You need to be able to help them to develop this innate sense of wanting to create and be creative so that they can innovate. You must want to help them to have the basic technology skills because the technology is a great leveler. And of course, we don't only work with machines, right? Joanne, my fellow colleagues will agree that we still have to work with people. So interpersonal skills become even more important than the pure technical skills because the machines itself can do the technical skills. Your pure interpersonal skills needs to go to a higher level. And hence, we need, because there's so much learning that has to happen constantly, the personalized self-paced learning has to happen. But it needs to be more accessible and more inclusive, including to the ends of the earth in Africa or in a remote village in Indonesia. Because there are many problems in the world, ladies and gentlemen, today. But whether you or your kids see the problems as problems or danger, or do you see them as opportunities to be solved? So again, that means the training of the mindset. A mindset of how that the children don't just say, I want to top the class. Daddy and mommy will be proud of me if I top the class in academic grades. Daddy and mommy should be proud of me if I have some contribution to society. Right? That's your true value. Having the student in academic grades doesn't necessarily make you a better citizen. And continuous lifelong learning, because things are going to change and change even more quickly than they ever did. This is a quote from Bill Gates. He says, holistic development of the child is critical. How do you get holistic development, not just academic development? If you have only academic development, the child is stunted in all other aspects of development. Is that what you really want? You need to ask yourself, do you want to develop your child to be a complete person, a complete and happy person who contributes positively to the society? Or do you want just an academic robot who cannot even apply whatever they've learned? So what does holistic development for us at Future Ready Academy, the reason I start Future Ready Academy is because I've been a banker, I've been an entrepreneur, I've been an investor, I've lived in 7 different countries across 25 years. I see a lot of things change. But what fundamentals doesn't change is the holistic development of a person. Holistic development of a person requires more than just rote learning, requires more than just the digital learning or the STEM learning. It needs the complete holistic development of the person, not only the physical or the mental, but also the spiritual, the intellectual, as well as the emotional ability. I see a lot of Singaporeans cannot manage their emotion. They're not resilient. Why do our government keep saying that we need to be more resilient? Because then we're used to very standard structured situations. In situations that are uncertain and we are uncomfortable, we avoid them. But when we help our children to avoid those uncomfortable situations, are we doing them a favor or disfavor? Ladies and gentlemen, I would say we are doing them a disfavor, because you are denying them of an opportunity to learn how to navigate the tricky terrain. So at Future Ready, we support holistic development. We start with digital literacy, we move on to problem learning skills, and then we infuse creativity and innovation. And then they could be career ready. Not only career ready, but more importantly, life ready. So, see these.
Now let's look at how our lives.
Earlier on, these are technologies that you are already familiar with and you are living with today. From Netflix, watching a Netflix movie, to your VR or self-driving machine or drones, these are technologies you are already familiar with today. Let me show you the technologies that could be possible tomorrow.
Let's look at how our lives would be like in one of Elon's future cities. Things will be a lot different in the future, even where we get our food from. Elon's brother, Kimball Musk, who is a board member of Tesla and SpaceX, is also the co-founder of Square Roots, a company that
shipping container vertical farms in towns and cities, as this is a more feasible way of growing food. We would get our greens from farm to table in merely 4 hours, and Kimball says that the tech being used today to farm food in climate-controlled city spaces will also be used on Mars. Imagine when you are dropped off at your office by your self-driving car. You will have more time to go to meetings and events because of time saved from driverless cars. So in a future city, which would be completely mind-boggling, what is going to be taught in school? How is the education going to be? Elon Musk believes the way children are taught in regular schools does not adhere to their needs. It is completely outdated in this new era of technology. For that, he started his own school for his children and a few children of employees of SpaceX, and is also on the SpaceX campus. It's called Ad Astra, which means to the stars. The founder of SpaceX and Neuralink believes that there is a fundamental element that the modern education system lacks, and that is problem solving. He explains this with an example. It's important to teach problem solving. Let's say you're trying to teach how engines work. Now, a traditional way is to teach all about screwdrivers and wrenches, which is a tough way to do it. A good approach would be like, here's an engine, let's take it apart. And how are we going to do that? We need a screwdriver or a wrench for that. When we teach like this, something important happens. The relevance of the tools become apparent. And he's correct. The education of our new generation should be compatible with the advanced technology and scientific knowledge today. He breaks down education as downloading of data and algorithms into your brain. He wants to gamify the learning. If the learning is like a game, the more interesting it is to children. He also focuses on to explain why things are being taught, as it makes an enormous difference in a child's motivation. At Ad Astra, they don't make kids go through grades like an assembly line, which is being done in many schools today. As every child is unique and has their own capabilities and interests, the children should explore the non-traditional topics such as robotics and artificial intelligence. even studying the ethics of AI, and also studying physics because it's the best way of understanding our future. And also physics instills a skill of problem solving in you, and especially the harnesses and shining process. Elon says that we are building progressively greater intelligence, and that the percentage of intelligence that is not human is increasing. Elon says we can't think of a human as a biological bootloader for starting a digital superintelligence. So there needs to be some merger which links biological intelligence with machine intelligence.
So there you are. Even Elon Musk says that the schools are now teaching problem solving, which is the number one skill for children to survive when they go to work, when they live a good life. So it is very important. So at Future Ready, we help children STEAM into the future. So you can scan our QR codes. We have special holiday programs. So for this session of PCF, if you sign up to the PCF, we have a extra little tiny robot for you. Now I leave you, ladies and gentlemen, with a last comment by our Deputy Prime Minister, Lawrence Wong, on the 1st of May at the NTUC May Day rally. Mr. Wong says, "We won't have enough money to match the competition, but what we must have enough of are ingenuity, innovation, guts, and gumption." Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. Parents, when you watch the future of work, will our children be prepared? Does it look scary to you? Today was my third time watching it, and each time I watch it, I worry for my 17-year-old daughter. Does it worry you, parents? Right. Okay, so I think it's about mindset change as well. I was brought up in a S.T.E.M era. Now we are into education 4.0. So something for you to ponder as a parents. How should we prepare our children for the future? All right. So let's move on to Miss Nancy. Miss Nancy.
Thank you to Dr. Tan and Dr. Jeffrey Na for wonderful presentation. Mine would be very short and sweet for a simple reason. The title of the book that I borrowed for this talk is What Do You Do with a Chance? And from both speakers earlier, there are many opportunities that are out there for parents, for us to interact and to bond with our children. And that is why I use this title, What Do You Do with a Chance? By Kobe Yamada. I've always liked Kobe Yamada's books because they are very simple to read, but very thought-provoking and good enough to be used, not only when your child is young for you to read to, but all the way. I was first introduced to Kobe Yamada by a Xerox senior engineer. And she said that this is the book that engineers need to refer to. What do you do with an idea? And from there, I bought all his books. And that's why when I saw this title, I thought it was going to be very appropriate because parents, you have taken of this afternoon, taken the chance to be here to listen to Dr. Tan as well as Jeffrey on very important information that is going to propel you probably to also change how you think about learning today. Have you ever had a chance where your children are asking you the question, why? Why, mommy? Who, mommy? Where, mommy? Or where, daddy? And those questions seems to be endless. Right? Questions that stimulate. These children are learning to form concepts, form images, make connections, and they will always be asking questions. Let me share with you what one of my children, I have 3, and the oldest and the youngest, when he was 4, I was driving him to preschool. It's memorable because if you take each question that the child asks you and connect with them at that very moment, you will find that there's a lot of learning going on. So he asked me, Mommy, what if I take the end from the ceiling of the car and put it on the dashboard? Which direction will the end move? I can see some of you are looking upwards, hoping for blue sky, thinking for answers to drop. All right. Which direction will the ends move? So that's one. The second question he asked me on another day was, why did the government plant so many trees on the road? So another thought-provoking question from a 4-year-old. Of course, I have my moments and my answers. And I'm happy to tell you that, yes, this young man, because I have used every opportunity, every chance I had to interact. He's now a senior software engineer living in Denmark, developing software even into AI and security. But this wouldn't have been possible if I had not taken the opportunities presented by the child, not by me. I did not initiate the learning opportunity of, let's do this. But it's because he was observing, he was thinking that information like this starts happening. And I'm sure you have encountered many times when your child asks, why mommy? Why this and that? And if you think you are the only one, let me share with you that I was at an event last month, and this particular child was behind me with the daddy watching what was happening on stage. What happened was she kept asking questions and the dad answered. But eventually the dad said, why do you keep asking why? And then, I heard the laughter. Some of you must have said the same thing before. I'm sure all of us are guilty of that, me included at some point. And what did the child do? The child was no longer observing what was happening on stage because she got the hint. Instead, she started looking around, totally oblivious to what was happening. So what would have been a great learning moment was lost at that point, right? Now, and if you think that this only happens to parents here in Singapore, let me share this video, very short, from someone in UK.
Hello everyone, I'm AD and welcome to Playful Pathways. Today I am here to help by answering your questions. Elise has written to me and she asks, how do I handle my child's incessant questions? My son is 3.5 and has recently started questioning everything. He asks dozens of questions every day and I am worn out trying to answer them all. Oh Elise, are you getting lots of why at the moment? Which, when all this questioning first starts, you think, oh, isn't this great? My child they're so curious, they want to know all of these things. You know, this is amazing. And then after a while, it just becomes so frustrating when they just don't let up with the questions all day long. What your son is going through right now is a totally normal stage of development that doesn't last forever. It's about the fact that his upstairs brain, this part of the brain that's rational and logical and wants to make sense of things and learn about the world, is really developing at this stage. So your son is so curious and asking all these questions because he wants to make connections between what he already knows and the things that he doesn't know.
So our earlier presenters have already shared the importance of STEM and STEAM in young children's lives. We heard from Dr. Tan about authentic learning, and that is something that's very important. At the very moment in time, what the child experiences is what I would consider authentic learning. So how can we incorporate those ideas into their daily lives and moments so that the child who is curious and wants to know more will try to develop those connections to bits of information that you're sharing on their own. You've heard the word curiosity being used earlier as well, and I'm going to hammer home that part because children, when they are young, they are curious. And it is this curiosity that is going to be part of their lifelong learning. Lifelong learning cannot happen to you and me if we fail to be curious. We've stopped that learning, and what Jeffrey was talking about earlier. Lifelong learning, all right? We keep on learning. And that can only happen because we are curious. We want to know what's next? What do we do? And when there is a problem, that's where we are even more curious. How do we solve it? Why is there a problem? So young children, you've seen, all right? All those with babies here and so forth, they kick their legs and their hands in the air. They're trying to maybe wonder about these few digits up here. They're trying to count. They're doing lots of things. And this is the moment where they're slowly, in their upstairs brain, are trying to make sense of all these things. And when they have the voice, what happens? Questioning comes in. But very short. Sometimes they just ask why, and why. And you are so busy and you just find, I don't have time to answer all the whys. Can you stop asking for a minute and let me get on to what my boss needs me to do right now? I see smiles from the parents, so they've experienced it real and true, all right? But those are the moments, all right? Those are the moments. And my child, the one who asked me those questions, incessant. So let me share with you one other things that happened. He doesn't read books, children's books with pictures. So at the age of 4 and 5, he loves to go to a bookstore. But what does he pick up? He picks up books that are words only. So he can't read. Who reads? Mommy has to read bedtime stories. But what happens? He is lying there sleeping and I'm reading. I'm so tired at the end of the day. So I'm just reading, right? I'm not really going through my brain what this thick novel is about. Suddenly he gets up and he asks me, Mommy, why did the captain do that? Do what, son? And then he explained to me what he heard whilst this brain-dead mom was just reading. And what happened was I saw this was a learning moment, a chance to talk about what was happening during Napoleon Bonaparte. Yes, that's the title of the book, Napoleon Bonaparte Going to War, that he picked up for me to read to him, 4 years old. And I could then explain to him how decisions were made during that era for him to actually compose and form images and pictures on his own. And in case you think, oh, she must have a very intelligent son. Sorry, my child has learning difficulties. But eventually he helped himself to his learning. And I have never used tuition in Singapore. I know that's the crutch. I've never did, but I work closely with the educators. I talk to them. And when they tell me what was happening in school, I take that on board. I listen to them and I work with the educators. And that became a very important part of his development with his teachers from preschool all the way to primary. And this is something I mean when I say a chance, all right? When information comes to you, what do you do with it? And similarly for the child. Let me share this about a work that Dr. George Land did, all right, formerly from the Arizona University or Innovation Institute. He said, the most creative thinking occurs around the ages of 4 and 5, and possibilities seem endless and restrictions are minimal. However, we often answer children's curiosity once, perhaps twice, 3 times before offering a reply as don't keep asking why. So in his opinion, when he conducted this, he conducted it on 1,600 students in 1968 between the ages of 3 and 5. So you can see his test results shows 5-year-olds, 98% of them are so creative. But what happens as they go to school and as they grow older, you see the number drops. And you and I, where does our creativity fall? Only 2%. And Dr. George Land actually used the same creativity test to help NASA pick up the most innovative engineers and scientists. So what I'm trying to say is there are so many opportunities in our lives. And we as parents, what can we do about this? When the children are curious, when they want to know how to solve a problem, how to actually move around to become better at what they do, or to form ideas. And they need that from you. Now, you must be wondering, but we are so busy. What do we need to do? Right? So let me just end up very quickly with James Dyson. Familiar to all of you? You might have one of his or equivalent or model at home. How many times, all right, just humor me here, how many times do you think he took before he became successful with the Dyson vacuum cleaner? Show me hands. 100, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4? No? The Dyson vacuum cleaner, the Cyclone, became effective on his 5,127th time. So he said it took him 5,126 attempts to make corrections until it fulfilled his need. And the item that we see in stores came out 5,127 times. All right. So what is important here is, as he said, I'm quoting him, right? He said, we need to give our children time to take apart, to discover learning. As Dr. Tan also mentioned, authentic learning. And Jeffrey mentioned about problem solving. They need to form these themselves. And Joanne mentioned, ask a question with a question, right? And that is very important, parents, to be able to redirect when you're most busy, for children to use books, for children to discover and use their hands with a screwdriver to take apart things. It's okay, they can't put back. James Dyson himself says, all right, I'm sure he did that many times before he found a way to do it. So thank you very much, parents, for the chance of being here, listening to my fellow presenters. And I hope that you will take the opportunity to also work with the educators where your children are at and listen to what they observe, see, and experience with your children, and take it home, work with your child so that they can grow by themselves as a thinker, a doer, and our future maker and leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Nancy. Well, I wish I can turn back time maybe 15 years, so that I can help my daughter to be a thinker, to be curious. I think I've killed a lot of that chances. All right, so parents, we are into our Q&A. Due to time constraint, we probably may have just one question. All right. And we can end it. If there are any other questions, we can take it offline with Mr. Jeffrey and even Dr. Tan. All right. So who would like to pose that first and probably last question? Anyone? Maybe to clarify some thoughts or, oh, sure, go ahead. Do we have a microphone? Yeah. Right, sure.
For the video.
The rest of the audience may not have.
Hi, probably every generation will say that about the next, and this is what my parents will say about me. But when I was young, the idea of problem solving I felt like forced onto me because I lacked things we had, sorry, there was a bit echo. So, for example, when I was younger, we had to take apart toys or computers, or I have to figure out how to configure my Sound Blaster card in memory addresses because only 128 bytes of memory. I feel like today the products are very packaged and ready to go. So my question is, what's the best tips you have to create an environment where the kids have to solve their problems?
How to create the environment? I think there are many opportunities to create the environment. Even if you take, for example, your Dyson machine, you can ask your kid to tear it apart. You can take your most favorite radio, but are you willing to allow your kid to tear it apart or not? The need is you need to have a problem for them to solve. That means it's not just the ready packaged thing, but you need to take the ready packaged thing to ask them to pull it apart, but with a problem to solve. That means this radio is not working. So what is the problem? I like this old antique radio or antique clock. I want because clocks are digital now, right? I mean, but there's still the value in the analog clock for watch, for example. So having teared it apart, then put it together, maybe it's not working so well. So then the challenge is how to make it work well again. So that means you have to have a problem. It's not because otherwise your kid will see what is the problem to solve. I mean, you're saying just pull it apart. There's no problem to be solved. So as in a lot of startups, as you know very well, the definition of the problem statement is half the battle won. Because if you define the problem incorrectly, then the direction to move towards problem solving will be in the wrong direction. So the definition of the problem is critical. So helping your child by helping the child not to give the answers, but to ask the right questions that will point the direction, but let them explore, experiment, and discover the joy of solving the problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if
Perhaps
that
Miss
answers.
Nancy?
We can talk more offline.
Shall we get Miss Nancy to share a little bit on that?
That's a really good question that you ask, right? And from my perspective, in terms of environment today, first of all those with very young children, I would start off by, at the age of 3, I made sure that each of my children make choices. That means I don't wait till they are older to learn to make choices. So problem solving is a situation where we as parents are thinking about, but to the children, the problem starts from making a choice, as simple as that. For example, we're just talking about parents probably asking children, what would you like to eat today? Children, what would you say? Would somebody tell me? They might be going for some. Yes, what would you say? Let the parents decide. So she's not making a choice. Another one would be, oh, how about McDonald's? How about KFC? So are you going to say yes to that? Probably not. So what happens? That is a problem because they are trying to make sense of making a decision. But we as parents, answer is no. Then why ask the question? So what are we teaching the children at that point? So I've always done this, which is at the age of 3, each of my children, they are always required to start making decisions, including something from as simple as food. But I won't ask that question because so open-ended means I'm asking for trouble. And if I don't want trouble, I best be specific, such as, if you're only 3, would you like rice or would you like noodles? Right? or would you like pizza or rice? So a simple choice. And gradually, as they grow older, they will be able to make more difficult choices. But I start off with that. And therefore, gradually, even for take-aparts and so forth, that type of learning, we have many things. We don't need something sophisticated and totally packed. Starting from something as simple as a pen, a portable fan. When they open up, they will see engineering parts in there, like a spring, like gears. So you are getting them to become engineers from the age of 3, 4, 5 because they are discovering. So we don't need a complex environment for them to become thinkers and doers. But we need them because they are so curious. We need to create the environment for them to do that. Okay, thank you. And I'm going to leave this with Joanne and with the other 2 speakers because I'm running the next workshop. So I have to be testing my laptop now. Sorry about that. But if you have any other questions, Joanne will take it and I will answer it offline. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you for your
Nancy.
time.
Thank you. Right. Do we have any more questions for Dr. Tan or even Mr. Jeffrey? No? All right,
I
parents.
just would like to add one more
yeah,
thing.
sorry.
Sorry. Learning is a habit. So second thing is, with curiosity, it comes responsibility. There's such thing as responsible curiosity. So don't do it on purpose to let the children learn. Right? When the time comes for them to take it apart, let them do it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you, our speaker, Dr. Tan and Mr. Jeffrey, and also parents here for spending the afternoon with us. Thank you.